You're listening to the E2C Network, podcast by Auburn fans for Auburn fans.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with Jared Davis. It's the off season, but there's a lot been going on over the last month. Jared, how you been? How's life going? How's all of the off season going for you?
I've been good, man. War Eagle. I look up, it's middle of June, and I'm thinking, wow. I mean, I don't know the exact dates, but I'm assuming college football starts somewhere at the end of August for some teams. So it's coming fast, and that's just crazy. It's just this year's flying by, and I'm not excited about the flying by of the year, but I'm excited that college football is just around the corner.
Well, and then even July and August time frame is when fall practices start up, and we're going to hear some fun stuff around that. So that's, literally like a month and a half away before we start talking about fall practice happening. Not just spring practice that we were talking about, but this is a legit fall practice. Teams get the full fall practice, which, I feel like for everybody is very helpful. So very excited about that. But Jared, I wanted to kind of do a main topic here, and then we'll kind of like talk about other Auburn news as we go. But the main topic I want to talk about today is around Auburn claiming more national championships. They're not doing it like in a public way. They're not going out there and saying we now have a lot more championships than the 1957 and 2010 national championships. But they have it on their website that they claim championships. And I feel like that's something. I don't think they'd ever come out and officially, do a marketing campaign and say, we now have 5 national championships, 1913, 1957, 1983, 1993, and 2010. Now, I don't think they're ever going to come out and say that, but I think it's something. What do you think it says, Jared?
I've said ever since, and really even with a playoff, only 4 teams, I've said that college football championships were basically a popularity contest. It essentially you had 100 and something schools, and you allowed human beings for most of the existence of football to choose the top 2. And it's the only sport you could not look at your team at the beginning of the year and say, if you don't lose a game, you will be champions. It's the only sport I've ever known where you could do that. That was not true. So I'm okay with it. I wouldn't go bragging about it or anything. The funny thing is, the school that would probably want to make the most fun of us about this can't do anything because they have finished 20th in a poll before and lost to Vandy that year and still claim a championship. So
lost to Vandy.
So they can't say anything. And at the end of the day, really, it's not a huge deal. I may have some discrepancies on which years they chose, and we can talk about that in a minute. Well, let's just go ahead and talk about it, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
let's go into it.
So we don't count 04, but we do count 93. What are your thoughts about that?
Okay, so 2004, obviously, we had a 13-0 season, left out of the BCS National Championship game, and then USC that year, because of Reggie Bush and his family obtaining impermissible benefits, their national title win was vacated. And Auburn won their bowl game that season against Virginia Tech in the Sugar Bowl. That one just so hard. Maybe it's the recency, like we want to say that one is it. I definitely lean that way over 93, where Auburn was on probation. If you're on probation, you shouldn't be claiming any national championships. Even if like some national champions foundation says you won it, but that's weird. Like that's just weird to me.
I bleed orange and blue, and I don't think we should claim 93. I think it's 2 different conversations. It's like, okay, so 04 versus 93, which one should get chosen? And in my opinion, it's pretty clear it's 04. Then you can have a separate conversation. Well, should they be claiming 04? I think yes. In the world that we live in now, when we go, and I know we have another podcast that we talk about the 12-team playoff. Most people have probably heard about it. Once you have a 12-team playoff, there's probably never, ever going to be room again for somebody to say, oh, we didn't get our fair due.
Yeah, we were left out.
We were left out. That
Yeah.
kind of eliminates that. But, I mean, really, even with the 4-team playoff, I don't know, man. I think that there's still left a little bit for, like Central Florida did it a few years ago, and we had the playoff. So, but yeah, between 93 and 04, I would absolutely choose the 04 team. I would not include 93, and I am a huge Auburn fan, so I hope I'm not making anybody mad. You can argue whether or not we should have been on probation. That's a whole different discussion. I don't know enough details, but we were on probation. So in my opinion, I would not count that year.
Yeah, and we were one of the 1993 national champions. Yeah, we had a great season, but I don't think that's one that we should be claiming. And it's on Auburn's website. If you want to go check it out, just search Auburn football champions and look at Auburn's website for it. It's one of them up there. And another one that I thought, okay, this one absolutely makes sense, is 1913. We were 8-0. We outscored our opponents 224 and only allowed 13 points the whole season. 13 points in 8 games. Wow, insane.
If that wasn't 1913, I would have thought that was more Xbox game statistics.
Yeah. If there were things called Xboxes in 1913, but yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Auburn Elvis actually might have been at one of those games.
That's probably right. I mean, he was probably like 5, but still.
He was 5.
But let's talk about the next one that Auburn's claiming is 1983. And that one, we went 11-1. We won our first SEC title since 1957. So it had been a while, almost 30 years at that point. And Auburn played the toughest schedule in the nation that season and still went 11-1. We were barely left out. We were number 3 at the end of the season. Number 1, Nebraska, and number 2, Texas, lost their bowl games. And yet Auburn defeated a number 8 Michigan State in the Sugar Bowl. So, like, my thinking is number 1 and number 2 lost. Auburn's number 3. How did we not jump them? Like, that doesn't make sense. And yet, in that season, the Miami Hurricanes, who were number 5, even lower than Auburn, a couple spots lower than Auburn, they somehow jumped us. What?
I mean, in a perfect world, Auburn and Miami should have had a chance. In the setting that we were in and the situation we had, yeah, that's wrong. I mean, the setting was essentially, we're going in chronological order. The teams that win their bowl games, they get bumped up a spot.
Yeah.
And so 2 people above Auburn lost. Auburn should have been bumped up. Plus, we had Bo Jackson. Don't know if anybody's heard of him. I mean, it was just it was not like we're asking for that to be gifted to us. That would just never happened.
Yeah.
And so that's probably one of the more valid ones, in my opinion, even though we had a loss in 04, we did not have a loss, but that one was just so, in 04, you could say, all right, well, okay, Auburn, well, we put you in the game, then you got to go win it, Well, this one was, Auburn played their whole season. They were number 3 in 83. Mm-hmm. They played the whole season. There was no other game to play, and then they get jumped. Yeah, I mean, that just didn't, I'm with you. That seems off.
It doesn't sit. I mean, like, that one is one that just doesn't sit right. That we somehow Miami they just jumped us. The number 5 team. Are you kidding me? Like, every team can have a great bowl game, but that just seems ridiculous. I mean, we beat number 8 team in a bowl game. That's not a shabby thing.
Yeah, and I've always had some problems with that. I mean, just for people to realize how fair we try to be, at least. There's been years, pretty recent in the last 10 years, where Georgia, similar thing happened to Georgia. They were ranked higher, and then when the last poll comes out, they got jumped for some arbitrary reason. And, even then, I did not feel that was correct. So, to me, it has to be something pretty outstanding to jump someone that high. But, that again, it all goes back to popularity contest up until the 4-team playoff took that away a little bit, but it still was more about popularity of the 4 teams you get in.
Mm-hmm.
And then which ones are we putting you against game 1 so that you have a better chance to move on to game 2. So the 12 team, and I know we talk more about that later, the 12 team might eliminate a lot of this.
You're talking about the 2012?
I'm sorry, the 12-team playoff.
Oh, 12-team playoff. Yeah.
I think it'll
Yes.
eliminate that. But yeah, the discussion. If you went undefeated or only lost one game, you probably have in a Power 5 conference. You probably have a valid excuse to claim multiple championships.
Yeah, I mean, and at this point, so Auburn officially claims 2. So, the 57 in 2010. But now, if you look at their website, there's 5 championships. And, I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not nothing that we have that on our website. But I also don't think Auburn is going to go out there and market that. Maybe to a recruit, we kind of mention, hey, we've actually been in contention for 5 national championships. There just hasn't been a consensus, so we don't claim those. And that kind of, adds a little bit more, gusto to your recruiting pitch to somebody, which I think recruiting is part of this, why we have some of this on here. But I don't think it's the main reason. I think it's, somebody somewhere, some foundation, some, association decided to name Auburn national champion. And I think those seasons definitely, except maybe for the 93, I think those warrant a national championship for Auburn to at least claim. I mean, do you feel bad if we start actually claiming it, like officially, that we put the banners up in the stadium? Would that feel weird to you?
Well, I want to address one other thing real quick. Are you contractually obligated to put Gus in our podcast somewhere? You said Gusto. I liked it.
Gusto. I wasn't. Sorry,
gone, but I didn't know if you still had to put him in. I like it. I wouldn't feel bad. No. I mean, here's the reality. Other fans are going to make fun of you about anything. You could do anything, and they're going to talk about you. So I don't really care. It's all about what helps with recruiting, and it's all fun and games anyways. There's nothing legal about this that I know of. So at the end of the day, if you want to claim it and you have a legit reason, claim it. I would take down 93 personally, and we've already shared why, and put 04 up there. But I don't have a problem with it. I mean, it is what it is. And here's the thing. Even if you do get grief about it, you're probably going to hear it for a year, and then next year the banners are going to be there, and you're not even going to think about it every year. So you'll take a little grief in the beginning, but not a huge deal to me. What are you thinking about it?
I mean, I don't want to be Bama. I don't want to be somebody that just keeps claiming national championships when they didn't win them. But most of these, and ultimately, like we've discussed, the ones that Auburn is claiming, I see what they're talking about minus 93. And that's okay. I think if you claim 5 championships, I think it's good. I don't have any major issues with that.
Here's where I think we're different, and the Auburn fan base is just different in general. We're not saying it's better; it's just different. I think the average Auburn fan, if they're having a conversation with somebody, they're going to approach it and say this. They're going to say, "Look, officially we have 2. There are about 5 more we legitimately probably could claim." Mm-hmm. Whereas there are other fan bases who look at you like you have 4 eyeballs if you try to say that some of those that they claim are not necessarily ones that anyone else would claim. Yeah. So I think it's a different setup. And there are very obnoxious Auburn fans, but the majority of them are going to approach it in the sense of, hey, we claim 2. There's about 5 others we probably could. Here's the list.
Yeah. And I think that's a justified way about going about it. It's not just, we're going to yell it in your face and we're going to tell you that we have all these championships, even though half of them don't even, there's not really a real reason besides, oh, you had a good season and you still probably lost a game. I don't know if that, like,
to me, I view them as almost like Barry Bonds. Like, Barry Bonds was a Hall of Fame player before he did what he did with enhancing himself. Alabama has a ton of legitimate ones, like a ton. I mean, they're probably more than anybody. So it's still funny to me that the 4 or 5 that are questionable are still out there. Yeah. But, it is what it is. This is all fun and games. I mean, we've all realized over the last year how important other things are. It's all fun and games, but it's fun to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, if Auburn puts up 5 banners and for all the championships that we're claiming, I mean, yeah, we'll get a little grief. But at the same time, I feel like it's not the worst thing that could happen. And yeah, we just kind of move on with it. And the next year, we'd probably not even be talking about it.
have you been on Twitter? You get grief for anything. You could literally say, I'm giving away all my money to something, and somebody's going to give you grief about it.
How are you not investing that in the stock market?
Yeah,
whatever.
Why are you not giving it to someone else? And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, never mind. I'm not giving my money away, you know? So,
Right.
yeah, you're going to get grief no matter what. So you might as well do what you think is best and kind of roll with it.
Yeah, exactly. I also wanted to shift a little bit. So that was kind of our main topic for the day, but I also wanted to catch us up since Jared and I have not done a podcast in the last month, and kind of do like quick fire. Let's, ask you a bunch of, different things that have come up over the last month, about Auburn and Auburn football, recruiting, all of that kind of fun stuff. So Jared, I want to start out with this one. Game times were announced for the first 3 games of Auburn's 2021 season. First game of the season versus Akron in Jordan-Hare is going to be a night game, 6 p.m. Central on September 4th. And what a cool way to start for Brian Harsin and his era, getting a night game. We also get, last year, we had the cool lights, the LED lights, but only 20% of fans could experience that. How cool is it going to be with a excited, I feel like everybody's going to be excited about seeing what Brian Harsin puts on the field and, how Derek Mason's defense looks and, all that kind of fun stuff. How excited does that make you that it's going to be a night game and not just like a 11 a.m. game?
Is that 7 p.m. for us fast time people in Georgia?
Yes.
Do we know? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so it's going to be a legit night game. Okay. I was thinking maybe 6 for us, 7 or 5 o'clock for Central Time. So it's exciting to me. You and I have both sat in an opening season game, and it has been brutally hot. So being at night number 1 is going to make it a little better environment for the fans. Night game atmosphere is unmatched by any other in college football, so that's going to be awesome. First game, a year where nobody could go, and now they can. New coach. Getting to see Tank. It's going to be, it may be one of the better opening game atmospheres against a non-Power 5 team, maybe ever, because the antsiness of people not being able to go for a whole year, and now you can, and the newness of things. It's going to be fun, man. How about, are you excited? Are you planning on going?
Yeah, I'm going to try my darndest to go, because that would be such a fun experience. All the fans where we can finally tailgate again. It's going to be the whole atmosphere that somewhat was lacking over this last year. I know 20% of fans got a little loud, but I think it's just going to be fun to be there with everybody and enjoying some Auburn football under Brian Harsin.
We're going to take a quick break from this episode for a special announcement. One of the things that we take great pride here at the E2C Network are our listeners, or really our E2C Network family. Now, I know they enjoy listening to us, but let's be honest, every once in a while, they probably would like a little bit of change of pace. Well, that's where you come in if you're a business owner. If you have any interest in partnering with us in terms of ads or sponsorships on our podcast episodes, you can reach us at e2cnetwork@gmail.com. Let us help you reach the widest variety of Auburn fans out there. Come on. Who else listens to a network where they cover everything from Auburn football to The Bachelor and the connections it has with Auburn? Utilize our podcast, Facebook Live shows, and other flexible partnership opportunities that are available upon request. Let us help you reach the E2C Network family and the Auburn family at large on how you might best be able to serve them. Reach out to us at e2cnetwork@gmail.com for more information. That's all we have for you in this special message. Let's get back into the episode.
The next one that I want to talk about is Auburn. Auburn's playing Alabama State. That's going to be an 11 o'clock game. I don't know. It's a morning game. We're playing Alabama State. Might get to see Alabama State's band, though, which that's always fun. And I'm not being sarcastic. They're an entertaining band. And then Auburn will be playing Penn State, and that'll be in Penn State. That's going to be a fun one. And it's going to be a night game. It's going to be a whiteout. And for any fans going, I might try to find a way to somehow get there, because I can only imagine how fun that environment's going to be in Penn State.
I was talking to a guy. We were waiting on our public subs, and he had an Auburn hat on, so we started chatting, and he said right now on the ticket boards, that's the most expensive ticket of the year for Auburn fans. So it's kind of like not the exact same nostalgia when Georgia went to Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame carries a little more factor there, but Happy Valley is a pretty cool place from what we hear, and I think it'd be awesome to experience it. So it's gonna be, that's gonna be a tough one. I think we're all kind of circling that game. If we, not to negate the other teams we're playing before them, but if we can go in and beat them, that might say a lot about our team.
Yeah, and I think that'll set the trajectory for the coming games, like against LSU. If you can beat a Penn State, and they're at their home field, you got some good feelings about what you've been putting in over the off season, and Brian Harsin can feel more confident about his game plans going forward. So I feel like it's all around. If we win that one, I think it'll be pivotal.
Yep.
Also, Auburn has over the last few weeks allowed players to do voluntary workouts this summer. And I felt like that's a pretty cool thing, especially since last year we didn't have the ability for the players to really work out together. Yeah, they could, it's very unorganized, but you could technically. But there was a lot of things like being on campus, using the amazing Auburn facilities that we have for working out that the guys weren't able to do. So I think that's going to be big this next season, kind of seeing the fruits from this off season paying off, because they'll be able to practice a little bit together, just, wide receivers and quarterbacks and running backs doing some extra drills on campus. I feel like that's a pretty cool thing. Another big news that came out, and I felt like this was kind of breaking headlines, that Auburn got him, was TJ Finley from LSU. He was a starting quarterback last year for LSU for 5 games. He didn't have a great game against Auburn, which I feel like myself included and most Auburn fans don't think necessarily super highly of that. But he did also have some other games. He was a freshman, and last year didn't matter anyways, so But Jared, what's your thoughts on TJ Finley and kind of how he fits into the quarterback room? And specifically with the depth of Bo Nix and competition wise, how do you think that kind of fits in with TJ Finley?
Yeah, I think it's great in the sense that we have options now. So if we get 3 games in and Bo is not performing well, it's not like we're just going to have to ride with that. I think we have options. I do think that TJ Finley, while he doesn't appear to be a game manager, I think he's more of that style. He does have a strong arm.
Mm-hmm.
I think he actually right now probably throws the deep ball a little better than Bo, but Bo is so athletic, so he brings more to the table. Bo's ceiling is not a lot higher, but is higher, I think. However, I think Finley's floor right now may be higher in the sense that you know what you're going to get with him.
Mm-hmm.
And Bo's a bit of a wild card. So Bo will win out the QB job, in my opinion, because that ceiling is just so high. But it's great to have Finley. Number one, it's going to make Bo be better, and it gives us options, not only if Bo's not performing, but if Bo gets hurt. So, And let's think about this, and then I'll let you talk. So let's say Bo has a great year, moves on and goes pro. Well, there's not a huge gap there now. We fill in with Finley, who's been a year under the system, who already also has 5 or 6 games under his belt as a starter at LSU. So the future helps out a lot, and the present is also helped out with just having that comfort of having a backup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the comfort of having a backup was something I feel like Auburn fans kind of last season were just holding their breath. Like, what if one negative COVID or positive COVID test for Bo Nix, took him out for a big game? I mean, yeah, sure, we can throw in Grant Loy or somebody else, but I mean that puts a big damper on what you're gonna do. And I think with TJ Finley, the drop off will be less significant. Even though I think Grant Loy is talented, I think he's kind of he'll be the second, third stringer on this team, and that's all he'll probably be. But we need those pieces because it's SEC, and we're playing a full schedule this year with 12 games. So you never know what's going to happen. And I mean, you just want to have that little bit. One interesting quote that kind of was floating around, and I can kind of see why he said this, but TJ Finley said, "I'm not coming to Auburn to be a backup." And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, obviously I mean, if you're 19 years old, you want to play, you want to be the starter. But I don't think he has necessarily that. He has a legitimate shot, yeah, sure. But is it a lot of? I think it's less than 5%, honestly, that he becomes the starting quarterback for Auburn, unless something happens like Bo Nix just doesn't click well with this offense, or something, I don't know, it's like an injury happens. Then obviously TJ Finley, go in there, have a fun time being quarterback and win us some games.
I think it's I disagree, and I respect you, and you're a smarter guy than I am. I think it's more 70-30. I think it's Bo's to lose.
Okay.
But I do think the coaches are legitimately going to give Finley a fair shot to win it.
You're giving him a 30% chance that he starts.
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
I don't think. Keep in mind, I do think Bo wins it just for the fact that he's been on Auburn a lot longer. He's already been working with Harsin, and his upside is so much. But I'm going to tell you, if they get in there, if they can't figure out how to throw deep balls with Bo, they're going to give Finley a shot.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at something here recently. We ranked like number 12 out of 14 teams in receptions over 15 yards or longer. Like only Vandy and Kentucky were worse.
Wow.
And it's not for lack of talent. So since 2016, Auburn has had the second most 4- and 5-star wide receivers, only behind Georgia. They're tied with Alabama with 12 each. So we have the talent there, but we're not able to hit the deep ball for some reason, and we weren't able to do it last year. If that does not get fixed, and in practice it is not getting fixed, I think Finley has a legit shot to win this job. I don't think he does. I think Bo fixes it, but I do think there's a very strong chance. I think Finley is going to legitimately be given a chance by the coaches.
Yeah, and just I'm thinking about the last couple years under Gus Malzahn and Bo Nix. I think if Bo starts out rough under a Gus Malzahn offense, I think Gus kind of just lets him work through it. And I just have a gut feeling that Harsin isn't going to play around with that.
Nope.
He's going to pull Bo Nix out and put in the next guy, and maybe give him a shot in the arm, see if it works. I feel like that's kind of what I'm reading off of Brian Harsin. He's just cut through the crap. I'm not promising you a spot that you're just struggling at. I mean, if Bo Nix is struggling, as much of a Bo Nix fan as I am, I kind of want to give somebody else a shot and see what they can do.
I agree. I think it's going to be Bo. I think Bo's actually going to have a really good year. I'm a fan of him, and I think with different coaching perspectives, I think he's going to pick up a few more things here and there. But I've said it multiple times. I do not think it was lip service. I think the coaches truly are going to give Finley a legit shot. I don't think it was one of those just to get him on campus. I think they said, listen, we don't know what we have in Bo right now, and that's legitimate. We don't.
Yeah. So
we need somebody that can give us another chance. If by the middle of fall practice we're not still there, we may have to move on.
Yeah, I absolutely think so as well. Another couple things happening over the last month for Auburn. On-campus recruiting has returned after a year of not having any official visits on campus. Auburn's now able to do that. And if you're on Twitter at all, you've probably seen tons of pictures of Auburn, just because Auburn was hitting it hard. They were. You see lots of recruits posting about Auburn, and I don't know, it looked really cool. They seem to be doing the recruiting right. Not to say that Gus was necessarily doing anything terribly bad, but it looks a little more organized, and that's kind of maybe the gripe I feel like some people were having, that it was kind of unorganized under Gus. But yet, I mean, if it was unorganized, Jared, I want to talk about this. If it was unorganized under Gus, and yet pretty much every year we were getting top 10 recruiting classes, how much better do you think it could potentially be with Brian Harsin, who has a lot of staff members that are not coaches, but they're in charge of this recruiting that needs to happen to get the top level talent on Auburn's campus and to sign with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that really your goal at this point, because Gus had us, except for this last year, I don't know if he was ever outside of the top 13. And you're right, there is rumors it was unorganized. Gus was a very likable guy. Auburn is a real likable campus. So that alone, you roll out of bed, and that alone will get you some recruits. Harsin has figured out this is a business here. We can't just oh yeah, we're going to recruit too. No, the recruiting is the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has hired a lot of analysts and people to kind of manage that. Now, will it work? I don't know. But at the end of the day, I think that with that organization, with Auburn as a campus and what it just the atmosphere and the feeling that you get from being there, that you even hear from people that are not lifelong Auburn fans, it's going to sell itself. So I think the goal is probably get in that 5 to 6 range. If you can hover in that 5 to 6 range recruiting wise,
Oh, yeah.
you're not going to catch Alabama. I mean, let's get that out of our head. They're going to be number one and 1 or 2. That's okay. You don't have to catch Alabama. You got the right coaches, and you're getting enough 5 stars and the right 4 and 3 stars. Hover in that 5 to 6 range. You got plenty of talent to beat anybody.
Yeah.
Clemson, this may surprise people. Clemson, until the last 2 years, actually was behind Auburn over a 10-year span of recruiting stars. Like, we were recruiting better than Clemson. That's changed a little bit recently, but that was even when they were having success. They were just they were getting the right players and coaching them and developing them. And nothing against Gus, but we started losing a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, at some point, I mean, as much as I think you and I both admired what Gus was doing, there wasn't okay, we're getting top 10 recruiting classes. Well, hypothetically, you should be finishing the top 10 every year. We did for some of those seasons, but it wasn't a consistent thing that, it's a return on kind of your investment of getting these guys, these top level recruits, and it just wasn't panning out. And I'm optimistic about Brian Harsin and what he can do with these recruits, because I think, like you said, we can get those 4 stars. I mean, it's a legitimate thing that we should get those, upper 4 stars, maybe, teetering on the 5-star range. I think as Auburn, I think we should be able to, and we should be able to compete against teams like Georgia, with the recruits, who, Georgia's been in the top 5 in recruiting classes for a while. But I think Auburn can jump up there as well, and I think pretty quickly.
I heard somebody say, they said that Gus did not lose his job because he could not out-recruit Bama. That nobody's going to do that.
Yeah.
He lost his job because he fell so far behind Georgia, LSU, and now Florida. He started falling behind that, and that essentially was probably what cost him his job.
Yeah.
And I think there's some truth to that. Alabama's at this level that we hate to say it, but nobody's doing that, okay? But the other teams, you can't fall behind, 3 or 4 or 5 other SEC schools. Then you have to start reassessing what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that kind of, rounds out that conversation about recruiting. Let's talk about a couple of guys that Auburn ended up getting commitments from. One was a JUCO cornerback, Rotarius Torrance. He is a tall guy. I think 6'3", though I've seen maybe 6'4" on some of the rosters. It's pretty crazy.
That's
tall cornerback.
That's with Carl. I don't know how tall Carlton Davis was, but he always came across as pretty tall. And I don't know Igbenogany. He seemed relatively tall, but I don't know if they were.
I think they were both 6'1", which I mean that's a good size for a cornerback. 6'1", 6'2".
This guy's 6'3". You can put him up against a tight end if you need to.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, and he looks a little physical, so I mean, put him up against a tight end. I'd love to see it. That's a pretty cool thing that if you're a cornerback, if you can do that, that says something about how good you are on defense. Another guy that we ended up getting is a former Vanderbilt safety, Donovan Kaufman. He committed to Auburn. And I'm sure it definitely helped that Derek Mason was our defensive coordinator. But, hey, we got another safety. And I think that was one of the things that it helps with depth because, we've got Smoke Monday. We need some more guys. We need some more guys that, if Donovan Kaufman can come in play, a few plays, few snaps, and kind of work his way into the rotation. I would love to see that for Auburn. And hey, our defense, I have a good feeling about our defense so far, and what we can do. Even with the shift to Derek Mason's type defense, I still feel pretty good about that.
Agreed, my friend. Excited to bring them on. We may have a whole college football team just off our defense. Again, I feel like everybody coming in is a defensive player. So
yeah, and at some points I feel like we need some offensive players, but that's another discussion for another day. And I feel like offensive tackles are on the top of my list. And
yeah,
man,
I would have loved a veteran wide receiver transfer and a veteran offensive tackle. That would have made the top of my Christmas list. But it's not over. An Oklahoma guy just announced he's entering the transfer portal. He's an offensive tackle. So
yeah,
who knows?
I mean,
we're not done yet.
It's definitely not done yet. But the time is, it's ticking along. Like the longer you wait, the less time you can learn the playbook and gel with your team.
Yep, for sure.
But I mean, hopefully we can get some of those. If not for this year, maybe they come in for the next year. I feel like that'll be much needed. All right, Jared. Before we get out of here, how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at AJAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger. And War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Before you get out of here, we want to remind you of a couple things. Head over to e2cnetwork.com, our website where you can find everything that you'll ever need from us, podcasts, blogs, and even ways to help support the show. If you want to find individual episodes, you can download all of these on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. So until we see you again, I want to remind you of one thing, that here at the network, we believe in Auburn and love it. The only question remains, do you?